Hey, you think you're a big shot because now you know how to draw a histogram on Google Sheets. I'm here to tell you we got a lot more to learn. Starting with, I'm going to show you how to make a histogram from a table. When you are doing this, you need to start by sorting your data. So I'm going to use the same data about heights as before, and I'm going to highlight this column, and then I'm going to go to data sort A to Z. If when you did that, it made the first name, last name, height disappear, I want you to do Control Undo. And then what you probably need to do is make this bar right here. You got to take this bar and move it below. What that's going to do is it's going to lock first name, last name, and height so that they're always at the top of the screen. Then you can come back, go data, column, sort A to Z. All right. So we need to have a series of bins. And the first bin, same as we did in the last video, is going to go from 50 to 55. Look at how I wrote that. That means 50 up to anything less than 55. Now, the reason I wrote it that way is because 55 is going to go in the next bin. So this will be 50 up to 60. Remember that in the last video, all of our bin widths were 5. So I'm maintaining that convention here. Also, the rule is always going to be, whoops, I made a mistake there. Let's change that back to 70. The rule is always going to be that if a number, in this case a height, is something like, say, 75, and it is right on the boundary between two of the bins, it's always going to go to the larger bin. All right, so there's our bins. And then next to it, I want the frequencies. Now, one way you can get the frequencies is you can just come over here and you can count how many of the values are in the range from 50 to 55. However, I really like to do it this way, and I find this actually to be easier. I'm going to count, and then it'll just count the number of cells. Let's see, 50 to 55 is just that one. And then next one would be from 55 to 60 is count. That would just be this one. I'm not going to include the 60. And then here's where it's going to start paying off. Count 60, 61, 61, 62, 62, 63, 63, 64, 64. All of those fall into that bin width. All right, and it'll count the values for you. So I'm going to continue count from 65 up to, no. I don't want the 70. Next one, count everything, 70, 70, 71, 71, 71, 72. I don't want the 77. And then the last one would be count whatever is 75 up to 77, 78, and that is it. All right, so there's our counts. I know that the total should be 25, so I just want to make sure that I counted them correctly. Take the sum of these values. Did I get 20? Uh-oh, what happened there? Sum F4 to F, oh, I want this to be F9. Okay, 25, I got it, that's good. All right, so now here we go. We're gonna take these data, I'm gonna highlight them, and we're gonna make a histogram out of it. So now highlight that, go here, and boom, 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 it's immediately going to know what we want is this histogram. See, here's our bins, and here's our frequency. A couple things I like about this. Well, one thing I don't like is that it leaves spaces between the bins. That's not so great. But what I like about this is that it does list the frequency here. I like that it gives us greater control over what the bins are, because I could have chosen any bin width I wanted. And then here I can change this to human height in inches. Thank you for telling me what a bin is. Right here, we want to change this to sample of human height. All right, another way that this pays off is it allows you to make something that is called a relative frequency histogram. So I'm actually going to delete this graph that I just made. I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to make a new column for what's called the relative frequency. I'm going to spell frequency correctly. Let's see, I'm going to need to do some text wrapping now. So let's take this whole thing right here. Let's go ahead and put a border around it. And let's go to the formatting and let's go to text wrapping. Let's wrap. And then let's also center everything and let's put it in the middle of the bin. Good. Now, relative frequency is what you probably more commonly know as percentages. So what we're doing here is stating the percentage of our sample that fall into each one of these categories. This is a very useful tool when you are comparing two data sets and they are perhaps a different size. So I know that I have 25 values in this data set. So for the first bunch here, I'm going to say 1 divided by 25 is my relative frequency, in other words, 4%. And then I'm going to copy the work that I did there, and I am going to paste it into each of the other columns. So we know our rows, so that we have 4%, 4%, 36%, and so on. Just to make sure that I am correct about this, I know that these numbers should add up to 1. Let's see, is that the case? Yes, it is. Good. All right, now I want to graph the relative frequency. So I'm going to take bin, which I suppose we could just change to height in inches, and it would automatically include that when we go to the graph. I take that, and I also want this column right here. Now be careful, you don't want to highlight frequency in the middle. So what you have to do is you have to hold down the control button. The control button is in the lower left-hand corner of your keyboard, and then you need to highlight this so that we have these two separate columns that are highlighted, and then you can come over here to chart. This time it didn't choose the correct kind for me. It went for a scatter chart. So I'm just going to, I'm going to make myself go away. And then I'm going to pick the one I want, which is right here. Okay. And so that is using a table to make your histograms.